sponsorship application, they are not required to provide anything about the training. So the training will be 9 on the second stage of application, which is nomination. Nomination has been really complex since the change of law because they changed 2 times. One is in March and one is April last year. And there is a transition period as well. So this section we just covered the new subclass 482, which is new application. If your clients approach you and tell you, look, I've got a job offer from a company in Australia, and then they ask me how am I going to work for them. At that stage, you can then step in, talk to the clients and their prospective employer, say, look, I'm going to look after your 3-stage visa, and then get a visa approval for the applicant. So you can actually negotiate with the employer at this stage, negotiate with the employer on behalf of your client about the wage, about the salary, about the employment contract, term conditions of employment contract, and length of employment contract. At some stage, you might require to draft the employment contract for them if they don't have a legal team, because the employment contract itself is really important. It has to cover a lot of criteria in order to meet the requirement of immigration law. So at this stage, this session, I'm not going to go too detailed about what an employment contract should look like. I'm just cover 3 main areas of criteria for a nomination approval. So I'm going to go to the next slide. The one area of approval will be genuine position. Okay, I think this requirement is really similar to the UK work type visa. They need to demonstrate that a position is actually existing. So, which means they are not creating this position in order to secure someone from overseas. So, which means this position is already there. Just happens to this candidate who is more talented and is more capable to take over this role. So it will be very difficult for now, because of change, that you suddenly have a position within an organization and require that person to, to do the tasks. I give you an example of position existing. For example, if for an immigration firm, it doesn't make sense that you have a lawyer, you have a migration agent. It doesn't make sense you have an accountant, right? You might have a payroll, but normally you hire external service to do the accounting jobs for you, to look after the organization's payroll, to lodge the tax returns. If you create a position as accountant within your immigration agency, you have to demonstrate that, for example, that is a requirement for you to do so, and you have 10 branches across the world. Then it makes sense. So position existing, it's common sense. I think they use this to determine whether this position is existing. So for us to determine, we really easy to we look up about this company. We do this little bit research, background research, to see what's, this company, whether they do the work, that we person do the work all the time. So position existing. The second one is their descriptions, their duties, it's in line with the same ancestral description. So previously we talked about, unfortunately, descriptions are determined by the Australian Bureau Statistics. They determine what a person should be doing. Okay, they determine what a law clerk should be doing. They determine what a engineer should be doing, an industrial engineer should be doing. It does not matter if you do more than the requirement, right? It doesn't matter, but it matters if you don't do required works, right? So I give you a really good example back to the accountant. A lot of nomination being refused because when they draft the position description, they state that this accountant does the payroll. This accountant does the tax returns. This is not accountant. Accountant should be looking at the organization side and should be organizing different tasks for other payrolls to do the work. So it's higher level of position. Because the description is not aligned with the ancestral code, the nomination can be refused. And at this stage in the department, because they replace the entire employer-sponsored team, they are trained to not approve the nomination. So they use this to say, oh, this person is not, the position itself is not under this description. So I'm going to refuse you. I am refusing you. They won't send any checklist. They won't send you any reminder, say, hey, can you just provide me this? Can you elaborate more? The third requirement is these positions fitting the company. Okay, so this position actually matched together with the service of the business. What kind of business be doing? And then this position it's falling. So at this stage, you can see nothing required about these candidates. Nomination is about position only. So once nomination, of course, nomination, you have to nominate someone. But at this stage, we don't require the candidate to provide their work experience, their qualification, and their English requirement, right? Okay. Now, a lot of the nomination refusal since the new in charge, sometimes the business creates a job in order to fulfill decision. This is which means a lot happened before under 457. Nomination can be approved, even they create it, right? So this is quite a lot of abuse of system, which is really unfortunate. I've seen a lot of them, and that's the industry being struggling to get files now, because previously they are able to work for these employers or employees, even it seems that not genuine. Now, a lot of organizations might feel difficulty, but I don't think this is a thing, because we're not doing this anyway, right? Our intention is to help the government and help the society to attract more talent workers to Australia. The second remuneration refusal will be mainly on, as I just discussed, that the position itself is not aligned with the NZ code. The third one will be that the position itself it's not consistent with the nature of business. Okay, so when we say create the business, when I said the create the job can be, they don't meet the labor market texting. Okay, so they did not send out the job advertisement, right? They were not looking for a genuine worker. They did not do this. So they did not pay for the job ad. The job ad itself is not clear structured, does not contains these positions, does not contains how much you'll be offering to these candidates. Okay. Now, when we say job created, department pays attention to these areas, that the business itself with candidates as a relative relationship is really easy to determine. For example, they have a surname, same surname of a director, right? Secondly, the business is just newly established. Okay, so we will say this. Okay, if the company itself they just purchased a existing business under new ABN, even with a few months, this is not a new business. All right, because the business purchase the entire client base, and they'll be start running immediately once for the business. I'll give you an example of a lot of business like mechanic shops, right? They have structure, they have their employees already, they have client base, they have their store, they have their that's garage there. So they'll be doing the work that just like before. Although that by the change of management, the business itself is a existing business. But we'll say because they have a new ABM, by definition, it looks like new business. The department is okay with that one. The third one is a small turnover. The business only have 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, or 500,000. 500,000 will be all right, but some businesses they just have 200,000. How can you survive and then import, give these people a job with this wage and really small turnover? It means your business is not successful, right? If you run a business for many years and you're not doing good, so small turnover will be paid attention. Of course, if you have lost, if this loss will be one-off loss, for example, one financial year you didn't do really well, 2016 you didn't do really well, but 2017, 2018, 2019 you pick up the business, that it's okay, so one-off. But if the company they have high turnover, but they have also high loss across the year, it's unlikely the nomination will be approved. It will be refused. Finally, if the company itself they don't hire full-time Australian citizens or permanent residents, they don't hire Australian employees, then they cast doubt as well. The nomination will be refused based on they just don't like it. So if we talk to employer, of course, when they say, when your client approach you, now this is really practical, okay? So which include the sales part, right? We need to seal the deal. When the client approach us, they have an inquiry, and we need to determine, we will need to check the eligibility, whether they are eligible, and we can do our work and get paid. When the client approach us, we will say, look, hold on for that. You got job offer. Tell your potential employer that I'm your migration agent. I'm doing the work for you. And then let me talk with them. Because once you interact with the employer, you're halfway to get a job. Okay, you halfway to get sales. If the employee comes to us and then we have no option to the employer, you're not able to get a job. Firstly, sometimes they have internal HR people to do the work. Secondly, they find someone else to do it, and you're not going to get paid, right? Because the company will take over the visa application as well. So when the employee, that's happening all the time. Of course, employer can approach us as well. But I have a case, many of cases, they are come from England. They got job offer, or they went to interview. Basically, they will say, "Look, I've got migration agent who is Joanna, and she knows everything about employers. So much. Can you give me a sponsorship? And do you want to talk to? Can I have your email address so Joanna can communicate with you?" So then I step in. Once I step in, I convince the employer. I'll say, look after the file. You don't need high HR. You don't need, HR, they have no clue and they're quite scared for this type of work. So, and I'll take care of, and we'll say confidential, because we're very confidential. Everything, when we talk to employer, we don't share with anyone, okay? So at this stage, we need to seal the deal. When we talk to employer, you have to show that you have knowledge. That's the part, you have the knowledge. So we need to ask the right questions. We need to ask the right questions. We need to ask, hey, just give me an estimate about turnover. How's business? What about 2017, 2018? How about recent? Do you have a loss? It shows that you're really aware of the financial. And I would just tell them, if you're not, give me a range, right? 1 million to 2 million or something like that. Give me some range. How many employees roughly you have, right? How long? I can see that, and you will do the background search. You will say, oh, this is real estate agents. They have 100 branches across Australia. And then we talk about this. We say, hey, I can see that it looks like you have about 80 branches. They will correct you. They will say, oh, look, we sign up a new franchisees. We now have 95 franchisees, so 95 branches. All right, we say that, and then you tell them that this because when we ask these questions, we take critical information first to see whether we can take a file. And secondly, do the sales job. We ask them a right question. We ask them financial, how many employees, and we tell them, I understand that this is current situation. Your industry, real estate agent, Australia is not looking good. I think you do have a new campaign, right? Right? We say, oh, I can see you have new campaigns. They would say, oh, we're gonna create a new buyers market. So real estate agent mainly focus on sales market, sellers market. Now they probably tell you, oh, on a buyers market. And so we need a marketing specialist. And we then, on behalf of client, we say, look, I think your client, this perspective has really talent. It'd be worth off if hire him or hire her. She's really good. She has 10 years experience. I'm sure she's going to be great contribution to this community, to the organization. At this stage, I say you are 50% halfway to get the visa. To get the sales. Okay, right. So when we do sales, we need to ask right questions. Critically, we need to ask right questions. And then for the purpose of sale and for the purpose of the information, we will say, oh, I think we're gonna get a visa. We're gonna get visa. Then we put, give them information, follow-up information, something like that. If at the initial, they just tell you, I don't have an employee at all. It's a sole trader, and we lost in 2016, 2017. So later on, if they insist, right, that's fine. You are a client, but you say that you feel that nomination will get trouble. The nomination. Self-sponsoring, okay, self-sponsoring under 457 visa. Self-sponsoring, for example, it's someone, they create this business, they are really talented people, and they just say, I need a visa. I have money, I got my business in Australia, then I sponsor myself. Self-sponsoring, under 457, all right, it's all right, and we have done a lot. Under 485, 482 visa, it's okay too for some states. Okay, for state, because there's another law, it's called corporation law. It's really different states operate differently. So at this stage, we will check what kind of background, whether you have a good feeling this person is not just, they don't know anything, just want a visa. You have to check with that. So I don't want to go too in depth because self-sponsoring is really complex, especially they actually lead to business titles. Okay. Neighbor market texting. Neighbor market texting, it's really, really easy, but really, really, it's confirmed. I've got my slide wrong, I think. Okay, I didn't get it. Sorry. Okay, let me just go back. So, so let me go to the neighbor market texting. Neighbor market texting is really similar to the UK one. They need to do job ad. The job ad itself has to contain the company name, have to contain company name, positions, wage, and requirements. So it's just proper one, and you cannot miss any of that. Sometimes if they feel difficulty, they do ask you to give your example. You can give them an example for that one, and you have to run at least for 4 weeks. Okay, within 4 months, and then they have to be paid out. All right. So I think we are stop here for now, because next session we're going to quickly go through